It was a topsy-turvy night as Carlton came back from 46 points down to shock the Brisbane Lions at the Gabba. As high as the euphoria was for the Blues and the disappointment was for the Lions, two significant season-ending injuries sobered both teams. A pretty innocuous incident early in the first quarter ended Doherty's night, but coach Michael Voss post-game was confident the knee complaint was not that severe and didn't seem too concerned by the incident.
Yeah, well, he obviously was a bit banged up there in one of the contests, so it was jarred knee. We'll explore it during the week. Obviously, it's hard to tell without a scan, so we'll do that.
It will be Doherty's third ACL repair and puts question marks around his football future, while adding another important player to the Blues injury list. Kadeen Coleman was clearly hurt when his knee smashed into Lachlan Fogarty just before halftime. At 23, he's reaching his prime, and in the game itself, he was as influential as he was in the 2023 finals series. Luckily, he has time in his career to recover and go again. But they are critical members of their sides who are both in the top 4 odds for the premiership. And at the time of making this video, Josh Gibcus also tore his ACL on Thursday night. Now the Tigers as a team aren't situated to contend like the Lions and Blues, but it's a horror blow for a critical young player that can't get a run to develop. Now teams before have been able to regroup from similar important losses in personnel, but the road to success is much more difficult. There are a couple ways to go about replacing these calibre of players. You can either increase the role of 1 or 2 players that are already in the starting 22, or bring in a like-for-like replacement and hope that they can serve you well. Both approaches have had some success for teams with ambitions to win it all. Starting with the first option, we can go back to 2019 and Richmond's team. In their round 1 win over Carlton, the major story was Alex Rance. He tore his ACL, and it turned out to be his final game for the club. So what did Damien Hardwick and that defence do to cover such a monumental loss? Noah Bolter still wasn't ready, although he got some exposure. Ryan Garthwaite wasn't quite good enough, so all there was to look at was the plays on the field. Enter Dylan Grimes. No doubt he was a great player before 2019, playing in the 2017 Premiership win, but with Rance out, he officially took over the role as the number 1 defender for the team. Now he couldn't stop the big forwards like Rance, but his speed and judgment of the play was fully released. Being free to intercept everything, his 2019 was his career best year. He achieved his highest player rating, came 3rd in Richmond's best and fairest, while becoming All-Australian for the first time. He led that defence to the flags in 2019 and 2020. The loss of Rance was big, but without it, we may have not seen the best of Dylan Grimes. The Eagles back in 2018 were able to cover the loss of star ruckman Nick Naitanui with the other strategy. What made the team's recovery even more impressive was that Nick Nat did his ACL far later in the season than Rance, all the way at round 17. Now you can't replace the exact athletic ability of Naitanui, but Nathan Vardy was a solid backup. He came in and formed an unlikely ruck duo with Scott Lysette, who is now the official number 1 ruck. For the rest of the season, West Coast lost just 2 more games and comfortably won their qualifying final against Collingwood and preliminary final against Melbourne. But we focus on the grand final, where both ruckmen were solid contributors. Lysette battled on and collected 9 disposals, 15 hitouts, and had a couple clearances. Vardy was much busier around the ground, gathering 14 touches, kicking a goal, and finishing with 14 hitouts. He also contributed in the defining play of the game, marking the kick from Jeremy McGovern and then placing the ball up high for Liam Ryan to fly and mark. It all led to that Dom Shee goal. The other role the two did well was quelling the impact of Brodie Grundy. Sure, he had 49 hitouts on the day, but we know Grundy is essentially an extra midfielder. He had just 10 disposals and 4 clearances and didn't have a huge game for Collingwood. The previous 2 sides mentioned did become premiers. Now a couple other important mentions did end up making grand finals, although they couldn't win at all. Josh Bruce at the Western Bulldogs is a great example of being creative when injury strikes. In 2021, Bruce was one of the league's best goal kickers, booting 48 goals, including 3 in the Dogs' round 21 loss to Essendon. But in the final seconds of the game, he tore his ACL in a cruel blow to a player in career best form. The Dogs slid outside the top 4, losing their last 2 matches. But enter Josh Schache. The former pick 2 from 2015 became a different style of role player to Bruce. He mainly tried to occupy the opposition's best key interceptor. He kicked 4 goals in the final series, but his impact was best seen in the preliminary final as he shut out Aliir. His role was pivotal in the outcome. He was dangerous. He probably should have had 1 or 2 more goals, Bulldogs coach Luke Beveridge told reporters post-match. His ability to compete in the air and reduce Aliir's and their whole defence's intercept game was outstanding. He followed up with a solid performance against Jake Lever in the grand final defeat. Although the Bulldogs lost, it was a great recovery structurally, and Schache's ability to at least contest in that finals months helped the Dogs get momentum. And then last year again with Brisbane, we saw them cover the loss of Will Ashcroft. Only a first-year player, but his impact was off the charts, and he attended 44% of the Lions' centre bounces when playing. Hugh McCluggage, Zach Bailey and Dane Zorko were the main 3 to step up and fill the gap Ashcroft's injured ACL left. Overall, all these examples do show that when critical players, either in ability or your structure, go down, you can cover them well and have multiple ways to do so. So focusing on Carlton and Brisbane specifically, both sides fit one of the 2 strategies. With Doherty, it has to be a collective effort. He attended 10% of the centre bounces, playing as an on-baller, but as we know he can move to a wing or his most notable position is a halfback defender. From what we saw on Thursday, Jack Carroll essentially came in for him. He had 20 touches against the Tigers, the same as George Hewitt, while Adam Cerra had 15 and a goal. Cripps has started the season well too, so it's clearly the whole group that must cover his absence. And with Sam Walsh coming back, it seems Carlton can still be extremely strong in the midfield without Doherty. So despite the heartbreak as a fan, optimism should be high. Kadeem Coleman is different. His unique kicking ability is almost impossible to replace as a collective. Connor McKenna has come in, but he was already best 22, so all things point towards Dane Zorko. The analysts want him back in defence, and he has played that role before. His kicking can match it with Coleman, and although he can't intercept as well, his speed makes up for it. Also at 35, it should ease the load on his body and help him use his high football IQ. Injuries are a part of the game. These season-ending ones seem to be more common than ever, and for the top teams, whoever can adjust the best will have the best chance to succeed. It's very hard, but recent history has shown you can overcome horror injuries.